Hey guys, welcome back to the channel for a brand new video. And in today's video, I thought it would be kind of cool to take you all through how exactly I go about learning songs. The songs specifically that you see me post as covers to my socials. And then we can also talk briefly about how I go about writing when I'm in writing situations. There's a lot of overlap in the two processes, so we can sort of touch on both in this video. Before we go any further though, this video was proudly sponsored by
Nail the Mix. Nail the Mix is the world's best online school for rock and metal producers, where you can learn to record and mix from the industry's absolute best. This month, the legendary Jens Bogren will be mixing Twilight of the Thunder God by Amon Amarth and Martyr by Septic Flesh. When you join Nail the Mix, you will get instant access to the raw, multi-track stems from both of these songs. As well, you will get a front row seat to Jens' live stream at the end of the month when he mixes these songs from scratch for all of you to watch and answer your questions. Nail the Mix is essentially a virtual internship at a world-class studio, where you get to be a fly on the wall and ask questions along the way. You can also enter the monthly mixing competition, where you can win a massive prize package with gear and plugins from Dynamont, Rode, Bogren Digital, Joey Sturgis Tones, and much more. But guys, that's not all. You'll also get sessions from Dayseeker, Architects, Born of Osiris, Sleeping with Sirens, Tala, and many more, plus dozens of super detailed mixing tutorials, the private members forum, and much more. So if you want to check out Nail the Mix, just click the link in my description and you can get the first month of Nail the Mix for only $1.
So the first step is going to be choosing the song, of course. Like, how do we figure out what we're going to actually be learning? So I would say personally, just as in cases like American Idol and The Voice, when you watch these contestants on these sort of reality-based competition shows, oftentimes you hear the judges talk a lot about the importance of choosing the right song. I think that the same can be applied for other instruments, maybe a little bit more important in those cases, simply because obviously it's a part of anatomy in the example of singers. But if you want to really bring a song to life, you have to really feel the vibe of that song. You have to really connect with it on a level in which you can project the same energy that that song sort of holds through the camera, through the audience, so that you can touch people emotionally. I think all that really matters. So how do you go about choosing a song? Well, two quick things. First of all, the song should really touch you, I think. If it's going to be something that you're going to be performing, make sure it's something that really means something to you. The second is, I listen to a lot of genres, but there are specific genres that I would say, just because of repetition, I'm more qualified to be covering. After learning a song or two, you'll start to get your own sense. You'll hear a track and like maybe you'll be at the gym or you'll be at work or whatever, that song comes on and you start picking out the drum parts and you're like, man, holy, I could do justice to this one. I have that all the time. If you're another cover channel or you're trying to get into it and you've been learning a lot of songs, I think you can relate to that. I hear that a lot from some of the friends of mine that are also doing this. Once I have a song that I'm really digging and I want to cover, first thing, figure out the tempo. Assuming there's only one tempo, which nowadays is becoming more and more consistent, that there's just one tempo through the entire track. Years ago, 5 to 10 plus, metalcore songs were all over the place. And then before that, most of the time, artists weren't even recording to a click. So sort of figuring out the tempo of a track was hell. I did a song with Toby on the channel. We covered Jesus of Suburbia, and he actually did up the tempo map for the song. He did it in Pro Tools with some kind of plugin that I don't have access to and I don't know how to use. But when he sent me the map, it was crazy. Like, there was a tempo change, hundreds of tempo changes per bar, because it was the computer's way of identifying the flow of the song, because of course they didn't record it to a click. Assuming the song has one tempo, I just simply use an iPhone app to figure out what the tempo is going to be. There's a tap button in the bottom right. We're just going to put the song on and tap along to it. So there's no song playing in the room right now, but I'm just kind of tapping a consistent tempo and it's showing up at 160. For me, I drop it next into Logic Pro X, which is the DAW that I use. Big reason why I went with this DAW was just because Logic is kind of like the next step up from GarageBand, which is a super common DAW that a lot of people will start on. So you'll see here inside Logic, currently I have 5 songs laid out. These are my next 5 covers. You've already seen one of them posted to the channel that was acting like that, and you can see here down below the actual stems from the song. And then the next one, Blood and Honey, I have a Stella, Hollywood Sucks, and Soft. And above each song, I have the actual tempo map just laid out to whatever the tempo is. So you can see that this song, Blood and Honey, is currently locked in at 219 beats per minute. Now when I zoom in on the transient of the song, you'll see that the first kick drum, like there's a wall of sound that starts all together. So it just starts, so all I've done is line up, I've zoomed in and lined up the transient of the first note with the downbeat of 204, which just happens to be the closest bar marker that I had in the session. And then from there, what you see below is Get Good drums. See here with Get Good, I have written out just the kick and the snare. I'll put some toms in, but I won't worry about cymbals. I'll unmute the MIDI drums and I'll mute Blood and Honey, and we can just listen to what this first phrase sounds like. So it'll be... That'll be the first thing that I learn. I'll do that for majority of the song, at least the sections that I kind of listen to by ear and I go, you know what, that's gonna throw me for a spin. I should probably write that out. So in this song, because it's a metalcore song, it's a little bit more complicated, I have written out most of the drums. The purple is the chorus. So this section here, this is gonna repeat. So in this space right here where you don't see anything, that'll just be a repeat of this. So I didn't need to write it out twice just because I already know how to play it once I learned it the first time. Same thing here. I learned this by ear. I didn't worry about actually writing that section out. Once I've got all of the MIDI written out so that I can go through and listen to any part isolated, I throw my headphones on and I get to actually playing. 2 reasons why I use the actual DAW to learn these songs. The first is, of course, I can actually take the MIDI and write it out so that I can read it in real time. Oftentimes I'll kind of set the computer up here so that it's offset just to the left of the hi-hat. So when I spin around, I'm sitting here and I can read as I play from left to right. So that way I have a visual cue of what's going on. And the other reason is, and this is the more important reason I would say, is I can loop it. That's super huge for me while learning these songs. So I'll take 8 bars, I'll set up a loop indicator, and I'll just let it run with the MIDI on screen so that I can read it as I'm playing, and I'll just play it over and over and over. Sometimes it'll take 1 or 2 times through if it's a pretty basic pattern with some simple fills. Other times I could be hundreds of times over the same loop. There are ways too inside of Logic to actually slow down the tempo on the song. I don't worry about that because I have it written out in MIDI. So if there's ever a part where it's really, really complicated, what I'll do is I'll take that part itself and then I'll just make a new tempo on the map and I can adjust that tempo up and down. I'll typically probably drop it maybe 30 beats per minute or whatever it is to a more manageable tempo. Play that loop on that part over and over until I got it at a slower tempo and then maybe move it up 10 beats per minute, getting it tighter and tighter as I go until I can play it at full tempo. That's essentially in a nutshell the whole process. So pick a song that works well for my playing style and something that I really vibe with. Figure out the tempo, and the tempo can be the toughest part figuring out. There's all kinds of weird stuff. Like I said earlier, some songs are not recorded to a click. Other songs are recorded to a click but have multiple tempo variations. It can be really tough for a beginner in audio production. Definitely check out Nail the Mix down below. They'll give you pointers on how to get past all those hurdles for sure. But if you're not up to being able to figure and sort out that kind of tempo identification for yourself, my biggest suggestion would just be pick a simpler song for now, something with a more consistent tempo, something that was recorded to a click. Once you got the tempo down, drop the song into a DAW and line it up with your indicators once you know what the tempo is, and then write out in MIDI. The MIDI part of this sort of demo as to how I learn these songs, that could be an entire full video onto itself. If you want that video, maybe we can talk about that down the line. This channel's never really been focused on production because I'm not very good at it, but we can definitely talk about just setting up a MIDI map and how to write in MIDI. For drumming, it's very, very simple because obviously, like, if we're talking about a pitched instrument, it's the entire spectrum of pitch, whereas when we're writing in MIDI on a drum set, it's basically just 4 separate keys. You're gonna have your kick drum, your snare, your rack, and your floor. And then after you transcribe all the MIDI so that you can read it, just start looping it. Keep the click on, loop it if you need to with the song on. If you feel as though the song's making it difficult for you to hear the drums underneath the song, and just listen to the MIDI, which is something I often do if I'm being distracted by a part in the song and it's a more complicated drum pattern underneath it. Now, the only big difference when it comes to me learning a cover for YouTube or me working with a project like a band to actually write drums and maybe track down the line, after I've dropped in the song, instead of actually just like picking out what's going on in the mix and writing out the MIDI underneath it, when I'm left to write it, of course there's no drums at all, so I have to kind of figure out what I want to do for those parts. On all the songs that I've written on, the reason why I kind of got good at writing out drums for a song, like if I was presented with an original to actually come up with something that works well is because I've learned so many covers. In learning each cover, I have to write out the MIDI. Writing out the MIDI for hundreds of songs and then going and learning them and kind of feeling what the MIDI feels like at the kit has just given me sort of a sixth sense as to what is appropriate for certain parts based on the genre that I write inside, the genre that I most commonly play inside. So it just comes down to repetition. The more times you're going to learn songs and you're going to write out MIDI for songs, the better you're going to be at writing out your own MIDI and feeling out what's appropriate for different jams in the future when it comes to your own session work or working with your own band. If you have questions, maybe we can film some follow-up videos as to what you guys want to know based on this process in the future. Let me know all your questions, anything you got for me, you can hit me down in the comments and I'll do my best to either answer those in the comments or maybe compile some of them into future videos and I can help you guys sort of figure out how to learn songs for yourself. Make sure to definitely check out the sponsor of this video. Nail the Mix and URM is like, they come up everywhere. I did a podcast recently with Toby and one of the questions I asked him was, how did you get so good at production? And Toby said to me, he's like, URM, man, there's so many guys that go there. It's honestly the best, it's the cheapest. You're gonna learn all the tools you need to make the music that we really cover here on my channel, the punk rock, metal, more extreme sounding mixes. So URM down in the description. Thank you so much, Nail the Mix, sponsoring this video. Thank you to all of you for checking it out and I will see you all very soon with something new.